Hello, friends, and welcome back. We all understand what it means to build something with patience, to pour hope into the land, and we understand the heartbreak when that work is stolen in the night. For decades, farmers have fought a desperate, losing war against thousands of wild boars, an enemy too destructive and far too intelligent. But this is not a story about force. It's a story about genius. Someone decided to stop fighting and start thinking. They've found a method so simple, so brilliant, it's turning the tide completely. These are the stories of wisdom we live to find. If you believe in the power of a great idea, please show your support by pressing that like button and subscribe so you never miss a journey with us. So, how do you convince an army of the world's most cautious animals to walk right into a trap? The answer? Well, it's not about building a better wall, it's about understanding the mind. To truly appreciate the genius required to trick these animals, we must first understand the enemy. This is not just any animal. This is an invasive force, a super pig, and it's a problem that America, in many ways, created for itself. Not just once, but twice. The story doesn't begin on a farm. It begins over 400 years ago. In the 1530s, Spanish explorers, like Hernando de Soto, first brought the Eurasian wild boar to the shores of Florida. These were not the docile pink farm pigs we picture today. These were tough, resilient, aggressive animals, brought along as a walking, self-sustaining food source for their expeditions. As you might expect, many escaped. They were tough enough to survive, smart enough to adapt, and they began to form small, feral populations. For centuries, they were a regional nuisance, the razorbacks of the American Southeast. But the real problem, the one that turned a nuisance into a plague, began in the early 1900s. This time, the motive wasn't food, it was sport. Wealthy landowners and hunting clubs decided the local feral pigs weren't sporting enough. They wanted the real thing. So, they began importing purebred Eurasian wild boars, the same ferocious animals from the Black Forest of Germany and the mountains of Russia, specifically for high-fence hunting preserves, primarily in states like North Carolina and Texas. These animals are incredibly powerful and famously intelligent. What could possibly go wrong when you fence in one of the world's most cunning escape artists? Naturally, they broke free. But here is the catastrophic twist. These new, highly aggressive, purebred boars did not just join the existing feral pigs, they interbred with them. What emerged was a perfect storm of biology, a hybrid super pig. This new animal inherited the high-speed reproduction and adaptability of the feral pig, but combined it with the superior size, aggression, and raw intelligence of the pure Eurasian boar. This is the enemy farmers face today. We aren't talking about a small population. Current estimates place their numbers at over 6 million, spreading across at least 35 states. And their weapon isn't just their tusks, it's their appetite and their very biology. A single sow can produce 2, or sometimes even 3, litters every single year, with 6 to 12 piglets surviving each time. This biological explosion has led to an agricultural catastrophe. The USDA estimates these animals are responsible for $2.5 billion in damages annually. They don't just eat crops, they destroy entire fields by rooting, like living rototillers, turning pastures into mud pits overnight, and contaminating vital water sources. So, how do you out-genius an animal that has outsmarted everything else thrown at it? When faced with a $2.5 billion annual threat, you fight back. But for decades, the fight against the super pig was a lesson in frustration, because farmers were fighting biology and intelligence with simple, brute force. The first and most obvious solution was the traditional one: hunting. Landowners and sportsmen were given a virtual green light. This shoot-on-sight policy was expected to keep the numbers in check. But the farmers quickly learned two things. First, these animals are not fools. They are masters of survival. They immediately adapted to the hunting pressure by becoming almost exclusively nocturnal. They became ghosts, vanishing at dawn and only emerging in the deepest cover of night, making effective hunting nearly impossible. Second, the math simply doesn't work. Because of their staggering reproduction rate, researchers confirmed a chilling statistic. To simply stop the population from growing, not even to reduce it, just to keep it stable, you must hunt and kill 70% of the entire population every single year. Think about that. 7 out of every 10 boars, year after year. It's an impossible task. Hunting, while satisfying, was like trying to empty the ocean with a bucket. So, if you can't hunt them, you must contain them, right? This led to the fortress approach. Better fences. Farmers spent fortunes. They built stronger wire fences, panel fences, and high-tensile electric fences. But they were building walls against a living tank. A tank that was also a master excavation tool. Standard wire fences were useless. The boars wouldn't even slow down. They'd lift the bottom wire with their tough snouts, walk right under, and the entire herd would follow. So they tried hog wire panels. But a 300-pound boar, driven by hunger, is a relentless force. They would root and push, day after day, until the posts loosened, the panels buckled, or they simply dug a trench underneath. What about electricity? Surely that would stop them. No. The wild boar has a secret weapon. Its gristle plate, or shield. This is an incredibly thick, armor-like layer of cartilage and scar tissue over their shoulders, designed for fighting other boars. It's also a perfect, natural insulator. They would learn to test the fence, take the shock on their shield, and then simply break the wire, shorting out the entire system. The fences cost a fortune, required constant, daily maintenance, and in the end, the pigs always found a way through. This left one final option: trapping. And this is where the real battle of wits began, and where farmers learned just how intelligent their enemy truly was. The traditional trap was a simple cage, a box trap, or a round pen with a spring-loaded gate, triggered by a tripwire. The first night, it worked. A farmer might catch one, or perhaps two, of the younger, less experienced pigs. But what happened to the rest of the herd? Wild boars are not solitary. They live in complex social groups called sounders. And these sounders are not run by the big, tough males. They are led by a wise, dominant, matriarchal sow. When that trap slams shut on those first two pigs, that lead sow doesn't panic. She watches. She learns. She has just been educated. This devastating phenomenon is known as trap shyness. The matriarch now understands. This strange metal box equals danger. She will never enter that trap again. And she will teach her entire sounder and her future offspring to avoid it. By using a simple traditional trap, the farmer hasn't solved the problem. They have made it worse. They've caught 2 small pigs, but, in the process, have permanently immunized the 20 other intelligent breeding-age adults in the herd who are now impossible to catch. This was the crisis. Hunting failed, fences failed, and trapping was actively making the pigs smarter. They needed a new solution. They didn't just need a better trap, they needed a genius trap. This, then, was the challenge. If you can't outmuscle them, and you can't fence them out, you must outthink them. And the solution wasn't just a trap, it was a system. The new thinking began with a critical realization. You cannot fail. If you catch 19 pigs from a sounder of 20, you have not succeeded. You have failed catastrophically. Because that one surviving pig is now the most educated trap-shy animal in the state, and it will pass that knowledge on. The only acceptable number is all of them. But how do you convince an entire wary, intelligent family, led by a suspicious matriarch, to get into a trap at the same time? The answer, it turns out, was a revolutionary combination of ancient animal psychology and 21st century technology. The genius of it all starts with patience. Instead of hiding a trap, this new method advertises it. Operators construct a very large, circular steel enclosure, often 40 feet across, right in the middle of a field. But here is the first trick. The trap is left wide open. For days, sometimes even weeks, the trap is pre-baited. A large amount of corn, often fermented to create a sour mash smell that wild boars find irresistible, is dumped in the center of the pen. The first night, the pigs arrive. They are wary. The lead matriarch will circle the new object, sniffing, testing. But she sees no trigger, no danger, no confinement. And the reward is high. She eventually leads the sounder in. They eat the free meal, and they leave, unharmed. They do this the next night. And the next? The trap, in the mind of the matriarch, has just been reclassified. It is no longer a threat. It is now the safest, most reliable restaurant in her entire territory. She is being trained to trust it, and she is teaching her entire sounder to trust it with her. While this careful conditioning is happening, a second piece of equipment is watching. A cellular-linked or satellite-enabled trail camera is mounted nearby, giving the farmer or operator a 24/7 live feed straight to their smartphone. The operator is no longer a farmer. They are an intelligence operative. They watch. They learn the sounder's size. They see the 15 pigs, then 20, then 25. They wait for the moment the camera feed confirms every single member of that sounder has confidently entered the pen. Not one piglet left outside. Not one subadult lingering. The entire family must be in. This is where the engineering brilliance comes into play. The trap cannot be triggered by a pig, like the old, failed tripwires. It must be triggered by the human operator, who is now miles away watching a screen. The final piece of this puzzle is the gate itself. A simple swing gate is too slow, too loud, and too easy to block. The true genius, Trap, the one that revolutionized this process, doesn't have a gate that swings shut. It has a system that drops down. The entire circular steel enclosure, or a heavy mesh, drop net, is held above the ground on actuators or supports. It's completely suspended, offering no visible barrier to the pigs below. The operator waits. The camera confirms the 25th pig is in, and they tap a single button on their phone. In less than a second, the entire heavy steel trap drops simultaneously from all 360 degrees. There is no time to react. There is no gate to rush. The sounder is instantly, securely contained before they even realize what has happened. Crucially, there are 0 survivors outside to learn the lesson. The trap shyness has been beaten. The system uses the boar's own social structure, their need to stick together as a family against them. It's a system of pure psychology, patience, and high-tech execution. And it is the only thing that has proven effective at clearing entire sounders, finally giving farmers a chance to fight back. And the results were not just successful, they were transformative. Let's put this into perspective. The core biological problem, as researchers had confirmed, was the staggering reproductive rate. To simply stop the population from growing, not even to reduce it, you had to cull 70% of the entire population every single year. It was an impossible number. Hunting failed. Traditional traps failed. This new system was the first to decisively beat that number. This isn't just theory. Research from leading agricultural institutions, like the Texas A&M AgriLife Extension, has quantified this. They found that while old-fashioned box traps might catch a few pigs, their success rate at capturing the entire sounder was less than 5%. But this new, technologically driven approach? The same researchers found that these smart trapping systems, the ones using remote cameras and suspended, remote-controlled gates, achieved an 88% success rate in capturing the entire sounder on the very first attempt. That single number is the key to everything. It's the first time any method has consistently and overwhelmingly cleared that critical 70% removal threshold. Suddenly, population reduction, not just temporary management, became a realistic goal. This system allows for the removal of 30, 40, sometimes more than 50 pigs in a single night. Entire multi-generational families erased from the property in one event, with 0 educated survivors left behind. But surely, this level of technology must be incredibly expensive? The initial investment is high. There's no denying it, often running into thousands of dollars. However, the economic data provides the real context. Studies from bodies like the USDA's National Wildlife Research Center have shown that the damage from just a single sounder can easily cost a landowner $10,000 or more per year in crop losses alone. When you compare that relentless, compounding annual loss to a one-time investment for a system with an 88% success rate, the trap often pays for itself in a single season. It's a powerful shift. from a game of chance and sheer frustration to a battle of pure, data-driven intelligence. And with this system, for the first time, the data proves the farmer is the one holding all the cards. So, what we are witnessing here is more than just a clever trap. It's a fundamental shift in the battle. This isn't simply about eradication, it's about restoration. It's about giving farmers the ability to protect their livelihoods, the fields and orchards they may have spent a lifetime building. It represents a rare, clear victory, where human ingenuity, using psychology and data, has finally provided an answer to a complex problem that we created centuries ago. This struggle of humanity versus an invasive superpest is a story that repeats itself all over the world. The American wild boar is a formidable foe, but it is far from the only one. Are you familiar with Australia's 150-year war against rabbits? A population that exploded from just 24 individuals in 1859 into the hundreds of millions, completely devastating the landscape? Or the quiet, tragic battle in the United Kingdom, where the invasive American gray squirrel is systematically displacing their smaller, native red squirrel, largely by spreading a virus that is lethal to the reds but harmless to themselves? Every continent, it seems, has its own impossible biological problem. The genius in America was this high-tech, psychological trap. But how do you stop a plague of rabbits that spans an entire continent? How do you protect a native species from a competitor that uses biological warfare? The methods are completely different, and just as fascinating. If this is the kind of story you'd like us to explore further, to see the ingenious and sometimes desperate solutions from other nations, please consider subscribing to our channel. And, more importantly, let us know in the comments. Would you be interested in the full story of Australia's rabbit-proof fence? Your interest is what genuinely gives us the motivation to pursue these next investigations. But before we travel the world, our story with the American wild boar isn't quite finished, because a new, even more complex challenge has already emerged. The challenge is this: the high-tech trap we just celebrated is a masterpiece in an open field. But the wild boar is, above all, an adapter. As the pressure has mounted in those rural farmlands, they've simply done what survivors do. They changed the battlefield. The new frontier isn't the cornfield. It's the suburb. We are now seeing entire Sounders abandon the farms and move into the sprawling, landscaped neighborhoods of states like Texas, Florida, and Georgia. Suddenly, that 40-foot wide, 2-ton genius drop trap is completely useless. You cannot deploy it on a golf course green. You cannot drop it in a backyard next to a swimming pool. You cannot use it in a city park where people walk their dogs. The pigs have found a sanctuary where our most effective weapon cannot be used against them. The $2.5 billion problem has moved next door, and it now requires an entirely different, and perhaps even more localized, solution. With the massive drop trap unusable, operators had to adapt the philosophy, not the hardware. If the 40-foot corral is a wide area net, this new method is a scalpel. It's the return of the box trap, but with the genius element fully integrated. Here is how it works. A heavy-duty, but much smaller, cage is placed discreetly in a greenbelt or wooded area between homes. It operates on the exact same psychological principle as its giant cousin. The gate is fixed open. It is pre-baited for days. A cellular camera watches it 24/7. The professional wildlife operator, who is now monitoring perhaps a dozen of these traps across an entire neighborhood from their tablet, simply waits. They don't spring it for the first curious piglet. They wait until the camera feed confirms that the entire small suburban sounder, maybe 8, 10, or 15 pigs, has confidently filed inside. Only then do they tap the button. The high-tension door slams shut. Its effectiveness is measured differently. It can't capture the 50-pig super sounders of a rural farm, but it is surgically precise, it's quiet, and it is the only method proven to safely and completely remove the specific family group that is destroying a golf course or a row of backyards, all without violating city ordinances. So, this remarkable story comes to a close. We've journeyed from a 400-year-old mistake to a $2.5 billion crisis. We watched as brute force failed time and time again, only to see pure, patient intelligence finally win the day. This entire conflict, it seems to me, is a powerful lesson in humility. We began this journey by underestimating our opponent. We saw a pest, but we failed to see a super pig that was intelligent, highly social, and relentlessly adaptable. We only started to solve the problem when we stopped trying to overpower it, and instead took the time to understand it. The real genius wasn't just the steel trap, it was the patience. It was the willingness to study the matriarch, to respect her intelligence, and to use the pig's own social bonds, its family, as the key. In our own lives, how many of our challenges, our impossible problems, are we trying to solve with brute force? When perhaps the answer is to be still, to watch, to listen, and to find that one clever, psychological key that changes everything. This is the kind of story we are passionate about sharing. We want to sincerely thank you for joining us on this investigation. Your time and your curiosity are what make this community so special. If you found this story of ingenuity as fascinating as we did, a simple like on the video is always deeply appreciated. We truly want to know your thoughts. What did you think of this psychological solution? Do you see parallels in other great challenges? Please, let us know in the comments below. We read as many as we can. And if you, too, believe that the world is full of hidden genius and remarkable stories waiting to be told, we would be honored if you would subscribe to our channel. Be sure to also click that notification bell. That is the only way YouTube can let you know for certain when our next investigation is ready. Thank you again. And, as always, stay curious.